Barbados, good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
And we're back on Morning Barbados for this Tuesday, and I suggested that we're going to do some education by the numbers, and for a good reason. We have a lady with us this morning who is a noted mathematician. She's a teacher. She's just an all-around good person with children, and we want to say good morning to Dr. Rebecca Klemm. Morning, how are you?
I'm fine, thank
Wonderful.
you.
I love the get-up, and I like and the little guy there.
Yeah, number 8.
Yeah,
Number eight.
Number 8. Oh, that's what it is.
Channel
Okay.
8, right?
Yes. Oh, we like it.
There you go. There you go. And always good to see Yolanda Kearney from the U.S. Embassy.
Good morning. Thank
Morning.
you for having us.
Good morning.
Let me ask you first, Yolanda. Why are we focusing on education in Barbados and Dominica?
Definitely. So you may know that one of the pillars of our engagement in Barbados and throughout the region is education, not only at the primary level, primarily through USAID, but through public affairs at the tertiary level. We have Fulbright and Humphrey. So we are looking really more broadly at what education is. We're focusing on STEM, as is most of the rest of the world. We know that STEM drives economies. We also know that science and math, they really help to train the brain. And so it's an engagement for us. We're so thrilled to have Dr. Klemm with us, because one of the things that she does is help kids and parents and teachers demystify math and science. So I am not, full disclosure, my degrees are in history and literature, so I am not a mathematician. However, I understand the import of math, and again, we know that it trains the brain, and we know that kids engage, even pre-literate children start to engage with math and science if the people around them are excited about it.
Okay. Perhaps that's what I was missing, because I never saw it as my strong thing. I just never saw it, and I feel like I was never any good with math. So maybe I needed you, Dr. Klemm, but what can you tell us about how you reinforce math and science concepts with students?
Well, I'm very interested in looking at where math is part of your everyday life. First of all, I don't call it a problem, because looking at things and finding out what's around you is not a problem. It's learning, and we approach it as, how would you encounter math and numbers and science in your everyday life? So how do we encounter 8? Well, you encounter 8 because it's your channel number.
Indeed.
We look at it as the stop signs, as the octagon. We look at it and you see that there's an octopus with 8 tentacles, and that all arachnids have 8 legs, and that it's the lucky number of China. What are the meanings of the numbers around the world in cultures and as the language of the world? And as Galileo said, math is the language of the universe, and the characters are then the alphabet through which you create the structure and the grammar, and you describe nature and science and your world through it.
Wow.
It's interesting, the approach you're taking. You're not just teaching math.
And absolutely,
Life.
it's totally
You're teaching life.
interdisciplinary.
Yeah.
It's life, yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
Are there any cultural challenges that you face going from country to country using this particular approach?
No, because they are the numbers of the world. So I pick up if there's any folklore or ancient cultures that have been using them and what kind of structure they developed. But every culture developed a numeric system to help measure things, to trade, to describe what's around, and in fact probably predated the actual written spoken language, because those were oral, whereas recording information started first. Even the beginning shepherds and people with crops and animals would do a crisscross on a stick. That here, you know, one animal went out to graze, and then they would cross them back. So the idea of one-to-one matching is very early in human development, and then in recording quantities, be able to have a contract between people. Probably before, actually, that written structures of language, of sentence structures were actually developed. So that it's part of the beginning of human communication. And I use it as that, which is a worldwide communication. Everybody in the world knows what this character is, and I present the stories from history and from objects and nature, science, and cultural stories from wherever we are.
Right. So it works wherever you
It
go.
works wherever.
Okay.
And I tell parents and children and teachers stories from around the world then. 8 was the original stacking Russian dolls, the Maryashka dolls. There were 8 of them. And you can ask maybe why, but that gets the question, where did this come from and where are the patterns? But 8 also says to people of all ages, and it's a nice interaction, I want you to drink at least 8 glasses of water
per
every
day.
day, and I want you to get at least 8 hours of sleep. And it's a different approach than having a sort of dictatorial adult telling those things.
What is the reaction that you get from children when you show up and you have, for example, you're going to be doing a free workshop here
Right.
in Barbados. So tell me about some of the reactions you get from the children. How excited are they about your presentations?
Well, they usually immediately want to hold them, and they want to know what's going on. And then I have a lot of pictures of visualization of math from around the world, so they like to see those and like to figure out if they know them. And they're very excited about them, I have to say. It's
Nice.
been very thrilling since I came up with this whole idea.
Yolanda Kearney, can the average Barbadian parent go out and be exposed to this new approach? And how can they do this, and where?
Definitely. On Wednesday night on UE's campus at the 3Ws Pavilion at 7, there will be a free workshop. We encourage people to send their questions to us via our Facebook. If you have questions for Dr. Klemm, how can I get my kids more engaged before the workshop, post them there, and we'll certainly have her answer some of those. But come out, the first thing I think is to remember that these guys are friendly. Forget what your teacher told you, wrap your knuckles. Numbers are not the enemy. And Dr. Klemm is my favorite type of educator. A PhD in statistics, that's great, but the person who understands the subject matter so well makes it accessible and makes it understandable, and that's exactly what she does.
But how do you give this whole concept legs? Because after she leaves, you know, it's back to square one. How do we keep
Get them
this
to
process
embrace
working?
some of it. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk more about squares later, but it's actually not quite back to square one because we had lovely meetings yesterday. I'm most impressed with the Ministry of Education in Barbados because the understanding is that, yes, it's true, you can stand up and lecture before children, but where's that gotten us exactly? So having kids be more engaged is what everyone has bought into. Now it's just a question of how to do that. What are the mechanisms to do that? We're so pleased that at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Colin Depperdine, who's head of the Faculty of Science and Technology, is already working with some of his students to go into the schools, secondary and primary, to help make math more accessible. So math is fun, particularly the people who've already mastered it know that's the case. But math is fun for small kids and for older kids and for those of us who maybe should have come on board a little,
Yes.
a little
Yes,
earlier.
yes.
But to understand really what the subject is and to make it fun and accessible. So there is a sustainability piece to all of this.
All right, Dr. Klemm, I know that you have a presentation at the Learning Center today as well. So how does this work for children with special needs?
Very nicely for children with special needs. One of the things that I'm very interested in that people learn in various ways using the senses. So depending on what need they have or special need they have, they're so soft, they're friendly, they're not scary. I worked with children to develop them. I have little ones that actually you can take apart with magnets so that you can learn how to put them together well and hold them in your hand so that you can see a number in 3 dimensions as opposed to just something in a book. It changes the dynamic so that once they can be comfortable, then they can actually start to play with them and tell stories. And it is through storytelling of the ideas through cultures and activities that people have been learning for centuries, and it really is part of what makes us human. If we can identify, you know, if you remember when you were a child, if you learned something through a song or a rhyme or a story,
true.
it sticks with you for a lot longer time.
Yes.
So I will take and I teach parents and teachers how to then look around and find numbers and patterns in your own environment. So that's one of the sustainability issues also.
Okay.
It doesn't.
You produced a piece called Cooking Up Numbers. How
Yes.
is that received?
Well, that was so well received. I thought it would be a one-time musical that I would write just to do it as in my life. And it was teachers and parents that said, this is fascinating. It was the music of numbers, it was the history, and it was all visual. And they said, what can you do to carry on? And that's what kept Numbers Alive going. And that's what inspired me to create the characters then as soft and friendly, friends you can count on, and to continue with the stories, the books, and all the other activities I'm doing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
In the last couple of seconds we have left, where can we get any of your publications here in Barbados?
So if you follow Dr. Klemm on numbersalive.com, is that right?
Numbersalive.com or .org. Numbersalive.org or numbersalive.com. You can get to the website where we have lots of resources.